Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Netcapital team. Let's allow one moment for everyone to get settled in. Thanks. All righty, well, let's go ahead and get started then. Welcome again. Today, I am excited to welcome Paul with Northstar Technologies. As always, these companies are actively raising on the Netcapital platform, so you can visit netcapital.com and search Northstar Technologies, or go directly to netcapital.com/companies/Northstar-TGI. I will add a link into the chat function to make sure that you have that. A few housekeeping items. This is a live Q&A, so we want to keep this as interactive as possible. As soon as I'll turn it over and allow Paul to share a little bit about Northstar and his team, and then I'll kind of guide him along some other structured questions, but please do get as involved as possible. We have this fantastic Q&A functionality built into Zoom, so please do use that. And again, Q&A is the best way to do it. It makes it easier to track the questions and make sure that we get to as many of them as possible. It's a lot easier than the chat function. So please do use the Q&A functionality. So after I get us started, please do go ahead and jump into Q&A and ask some questions. Again, we want this to be super interactive. It'll be about 45 minutes to an hour. So with that being said, Paul, why don't you come on in and tell us a little bit about Northstar Technologies?
Yep, thank you for having us. Northstar is a technology company. We specialize in construction. We've developed advanced building systems to address a lot of the challenges in construction, sustainability, safety. So cumulative over a number of years, we've taken different types of building systems and what the benefits of them are and where some of the deficiencies are, and then developed our system around that.
Fantastic, fantastic. And Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got involved, and then any other team members that you'd like to highlight?
Sure. So I graduated from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, degree in architectural design, product development, and that kind of spawned into designing structures back in '86. I've been in commercial construction for 34 years, union, non-union, upstate New York. We've done work all over the country, a couple malls in Puerto Rico. So accumulative with that experience, I've been able to work with these different building systems. And again, that's kind of how the system was developed. Looking at what worked, what didn't work. Being in Florida, we're susceptible, obviously, to a lot of hurricanes, high wind and water. So looking at firsthand what happens to structures in hurricane type situations, that allowed us to basically develop the technology to kind of offset what some of that does. So my background is in the technology side. I work with our engineering teams, architectural design teams, manufacturing. Dwayne Parker's our president. He handles sales and business development. Scott Foster's our CFO and COO. So he handles a lot of the operational. So we have a really great team. These guys are extremely talented. They've all worked for Fortune 500 companies. We have a lot of Fortune 500 company advisors on our board as well. And so we've accumulated a team of people that can really help guide the company and bring this product to the global market.
And you mentioned the advisory team and some of the support from them. Can you tell us a little bit about those advisors, about James and Randall and them?
Sure. So James O'Neill, he worked with Northrop Grumman, so he brings a lot of that aerospace type defense background within. Randy Rawls works with the FAA, so part of our aviation, our counter drone technology, very useful as far as, you know, what the industry needs, what the problems are with that. Ralph Schmelzer, he was a international consultant, so he handles all of our evaluations, both internally to our own team to help guide and culture us within the company and grow, but also as we look to onboard new employees, he's instrumental in basically doing reviews of them. He's placed CEOs with many Fortune 500 companies around the world.
Fantastic. And we're already getting some questions coming in, and I'll guide them and pepper them in. But why don't you? This actually is probably a good place to ask this one. When did Northstar begin? When did you guys create this?
So early 2020 is when Northstar was actually launched, and it was launched to bring the product to market. So for the past 16 years, the product has been in different phases of development, testing, prototyping, and then the goal with Northstar at the end of Q4 of last year was to complete our Florida product approval, which was a requirement for us to use the system in Florida and high wind velocity areas. So first quarter of this year is full-blown marketing and business development.
That's great. That's great. And then tell us a little bit about what do you see as the problem, and how does Northstar fit in as one of the solutions?
The construction industry's antiquated. You know, other industries advanced: aerospace, automotive, farming, technology in general, and certain building components have advanced, like better windows, better doors, but the building envelope, which is the true structural part of our buildings and homes, has not advanced. I mean, the industry's still laying block like the Romans did. I mean, it's an antiquated technology. There's a lot of problems with it: water intrusion, a lot of rotting with wood framing from a sustainability side. You know, up north, even on the West Coast, they're having problem getting wood right now, you know, because of all the fires. And then with Canada, you know, a lot of the mills being shut down. So the industry has been very dependent on old technologies. And with the sustainability side, especially what's going on now, bringing sustainability into the forefront with alternative energy sources and such, energy cannot be done efficiently if a structure is not designed for it. You know, for instance, like in California, those structures are supposed to be 100% solar, but you can't put enough PV panels on a home or a building that wasn't energy efficient. It's like having an inefficient car and just putting gas into it all the time to make it go. It's not affordable. So Northstar's building system, by using high performance composites, I don't want to say we're like a Yeti cooler, but when you can make a structure that energy efficient, it takes very little energy to run it. And that's the whole principle of what we've done.
Got it. And we're going to get into some of the revenue model and revenue metrics in a little bit, so I'll hold off on that. There were a couple of highlights at the top of your offering page. You know, my understanding is that you're in negotiations to be exclusive vendors, and there are a couple of key partnerships that you're working on. Can you talk to us a little bit about your traction and future and near term goals?
Yes. So all of our supply chain has been finalized at this point. So we have a deal with the largest pultrusion manufacturer in the world that is based out of Virginia, that handles all of our pultruded products. And so our C channels, our panels, our ballistic armor plate all comes in. We have multiple sources, but we've picked one primary one, and they're the best in the industry. And it also gives us access to all their engineering teams and their internal labs. From a OEM supplier. We have partnerships in place with insulation companies that we found that were the best in the world that we felt, which is Rockwool, which is a mineral wool insulation. So it's fire retardant, water resistant, and that's an OEM component to Northstar. We've also partnered with Sonnen, which is our battery management system and power storage, and Solitech, both companies out of Germany. So Solitech is our solar roof tile and solar roof panel supplier. So I think we probably have a very, very strong and small network as far as what we needed from the OEM side. And from those, Northstar then takes those components and then does the manufacturing.
Got it, got it. And it looks like there's a pretty substantial difference between your composite and, let's say, the traditional concrete. Can you go into some of the advantages that Northstar Technology has over concrete?
Yes. So for one, from a sustainability side, basically our carbon footprint, which is the total carbon, that is take embodied carbon, which is what's generated by the manufacturing of the raw material. Concrete and steel are the two most highest total embodied carbon building systems. So just generating the product generates a huge carbon footprint. We are substantially lower than those. From a sustainability side, the wood, we're not destroying forests. So from a sustainability OEM component, that's what makes Northstar's product so advantageous over conventional building systems.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit also about kind of the impact ratings and, you know, the structural design and safety of these buildings when they use your products?
Yes. So again, being in Florida, firsthand, going through Hurricane Irma, Charlie, Wilma, it's emotionally, when you go through those types of storms, it puts a new perspective on what a structure actually goes under. So our systems have all been designed around natural disasters. So they're designed around the two most stringent codes in the country, Florida for high wind and water, and California for fire and seismic. So on the impact rating side, we passed what's called an ICC 500, which is actual tornado test. We are rated at 250 mile an hour impact, which is a projectile from a 250 mile an hour impact rating. Where that's important is, you know, when you see homes and the roofs are blown off of those, what happens is that when the walls are penetrated or a window, that house or building fills up with air, just like jamming air into a balloon. It gets only so big and then something detaches, and that's usually the roof. So by using a ballistic armor plate, our exterior wall panels made of 1/4 inch UL listed ballistic level 1 armor plate. We use it for impact rating, but also it'll take a direct hit with a 9mm at 5 yards. So it is also a ballistic structure. From a earthquake, what happens in earthquakes, it's weight, right? So the lower the weight of the building structure, the less momentum that the building picks up on its own weight. So if you can imagine a heavy mid-rise structure out of concrete, as that thing starts to sway with the the earthquake, under its own generated energy, that momentum is what brings the building to failure. So with a Northstar system, it's lightweight, it's flexible, and it's able to bend with the movement. And that way we have less catastrophic damage to it. Probably one of the most impactful things that we do is that our wall panels are framed like a conventional construction, is like a C-channel, but we epoxy bond the ballistic armor plate to that C-channel frame. So it basically becomes a monobody, like a Corvette body. That allows the skin of the building or structure to move and strengthen that wall so that it basically handles shear and different loading capacities. So that's what makes the system so strong.
Great. And we'll circle over to business model and competitive landscape in a little bit, but I want to get to some of these questions coming in. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the cost of your system versus wood and concrete for a standard home, or
Sure.
per square feet of construction?
So on a home, let's say a Florida home that's made out of concrete block and stucco, our wall panels are dollar for dollar competitive with them. With wood, our materials are more expensive than wood, but because we went to an automated manufacturing process, we can offset that cost by reducing our labor costs. So we've been very competitive, on our model for our homes. So when Northstar puts a home model into the market, it's basically sold at a competitive rate of a standard home, say low end $156 a square foot to $250 a square foot. And that's complete appliance packages and all of our electronic packages as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. More questions coming in. Thank you so much for all the attendees engaging with the Q&A. This is exactly how we want it to be, as interactive as possible. Any pollution output when making these products? Good question.
Well, again, when you talk about pollution side, not in our manufacturing process, because we're not burning it. We're not, basically extrapolating it. It's made very similar to the way aluminum extrusion is made. It's called pultruded. So we're actually pulling the glass fibers and the resin through a tooling. And as it's coming off, it's heat cured. And so there is no outgassing to it. So a lot of people, will compare us to a standard fiberglass product, like a boat or an RV that's made, that they say, hey, we smell this styrene smell. Does yours have that? And we do not. We have no outgassing. And actually the system is used in aerospace, the materials. So we have all the outgassing reports that show that it's actually sustainable and used in space vehicle construction.
Great. Okay, so let's circle back to the business model. How does the company make money?
So our primary source is through manufacturing. We are a single solution design, manufacture, build company. And the reason we work with that model is because, as you know, the construction industry, very difficult to change. And so what we do is we market directly to end user, either to developer or a homeowner, let's say, to drive the want for the product. And then we're pulled into projects. Providing that turnkey package eliminates resistance that you would with a normal construction process, where an architect is speccing one product, the builder gets it, he uses products that he wants to use. So with Northstar, from inception of client relation through design, engineering, manufacturing, build, Northstar is in control of that entire project turnkey.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit about the kind of the IP licensing part of the revenue model?
Yeah, so in certain applications, we work with different, like counter drone for say, structures for those units need to be ballistic rated. So we will build the enclosure system and then license a company with the UAA counter drone technology to be able to incorporate that technology into our structures. So we'll license them. We basically make our revenue off the end product sale of our components on that type of product. There's also other industries, data center industry, for instance. There's large mobile data centers is a huge market right now. A lot of universities are putting on campus data centers. Even though they're cloud-based, they want data centers locally on campus to reduce latency. And so because our structures are Wi-Fi transparent, it allows all those electronics to be in the system. So that opens us up not only to data centers, but also cellular industry as well. And so we'll license specialty companies like that to use our structures. Northstar manufactures the enclosure, and then they do the build out on the electronic side.
Very cool. Circling back to this, so any revenue to date?
Again, we just launched the actual product actually came out of testing at the end of 2020. So 2020, we had about $21,000 in revenue, and that was just some baseline projects that we were doing. Currently, Northstar is under a letter of intent, very large project, $2.3 billion contract up in the Northeast. And Northstar is a specified building system on it. We're anticipating approximately $300 million contract over 5 to 7 years at minimum. We've also had worked with the union up there. So we have a union agreement going under place for that type of project specific. And there's also insurance programs being written around our product right now, specifically for that product and for other coastal communities. And because we actually are changing coastal standards. So not only with the resistance for impact rating, we're also corrosion resistant. So we don't get rotting when we're used on saltwater applications and such. So we basically are corrosion resistant, termite and rot resistant. So those markets really, when I talked about before about pulling us into a project, a project will say, look, we need a structure to do this. We had one project that we were brought to, and basically the criteria was we need a structure that can take high heat, that's lightweight, that can withstand a Category 5 hurricane while going under a 6.0 earthquake. And so our engineers worked up what those calculations would be, and then our system was designed to that. So on project side, we have a lot in the pipeline. We are working with some FEMA level people right now on the insurance side, because as you know, FEMA, they really weren't designed to rebuild communities. They're there for, emergency management. And so our projects are really driven by need right now, not by just only trying to change the market. It's we're creating a solution to a problem that is just getting worse every year. So we have a really good pipeline right now with our business development teams. And so we're really looking forward to a good 21.
Great, yeah, and I know you just kind of gave us the timeline and how new you are to market, but any large builders like Lennar, et cetera, they're probably not using the product now, but are you in conversations with any of them at this point?
Yes. They're very interested in our modularity. We're what's considered a panelized construction. So where they really benefit from it, normal construction, when they go in for a permit, nothing happens at that job site until the permit is pulled. With our system, because everything is panelized in plant and then shipped as a knockdown kit, we are actually able to manufacture the structure while a Lennar or Pulte's in for permit. So when that permit comes out and the slab's poured, we can erect basically a 2,800 square foot home in 5 days with a 5-man crew. And that's bringing it to its first inspection, which would probably take about 2 months, doing it out of standard framing construction to get to exterior walls, interior load bearing support, roof trusses, roof decking. We can do that in about 5 days with a 5-man crew.
Very interesting.
European auto dealers for specific sales locations and dealership locations. We actually have a meeting coming up this weekend with a team that's developing those. So that is another huge market because we can get really, really cool finishes on the product. We could do high gloss automotive finishes. So instead of using all these different types of applied metals and such on a building structure like they do now to get these different looks, we can actually incorporate them right into the product.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And one of the attendees said that was quite impressive. So a couple questions coming in about some after the project is complete, it sounds like. So can customers easily make repairs, renovations, or additions once the building is complete? Good question.
Yes. So the way that we design them, if a modification needs to be changed in the field, or if they want to add an addition on later, they basically, with standard carpentry tools, can cut the framing, cut the ballistic plate. We use standard woodworking tools if we really needed to, make a field modification. Where we really accelerate is that we design, let's say, a home that is designed to grow. So for instance, if you have a starter home or a starter family and they can only afford 1,000 square foot home, but they have a nice 3-4 acre lot and they know which way they want to develop the home or expand it, when we would pre-install framing and plumbing connections in different areas, so that basically all we're doing is cutting out the ballistic plate and then adding additional panelized wall, floor, and roof sections on it to expand it. So what it does is eliminates the need for demolition, so you're not wasting money on that. You're basically able to put those funds towards expansion. So we're designed to be able to be modularly grown.
Great, great, great. And then is there a cap on the structure height once it's designed?
So in Florida, we were 12 foot is about a good for either a high rise floor to floor height or for a home. So what we did is we did our testing in Florida on a 12-foot high panel, unlimited length. So if we were doing a 2 or 3 story, we would just do one of our composite column and beam lines, and then the next wall for the second floor would be stacked on that. So our wall height in Florida is only restricted to an unsupported height of that wall. So we can go up to 4 stories complete Northstar structure, which is Northstar exterior walls, Northstar floor deck, and Northstar roof deck. If we are in a high-rise application, which is a separate market for us, which is called a cladding market, in Florida, we're approved for exposure D, which allows us to go up to a 500-foot structure for cladding in Miami's highest wind zone area. Outside of a high velocity wind zone, we're pretty much unlimited to the height we're going. We act more as what's called a curtain wall. We're just a non-load bearing envelope of the building, but that takes the impact of the storms.
Thanks, Paul. You are definitely an expert in this space. So that is great. Great to have you on here. So somebody wants to move into competitive landscape here. Can you tell us a little bit about who else is in this space and what is your competitive advantage?
So it's kind of a unique business for us, is from the standpoint that we don't have a direct competitor per se of a company that makes the same systems. The patents that we have filed are what we feel are called a seminal patent, which are the only ones of its kind. So to date, to our knowledge and through our patent research, we are the only company in the world that has a complete 100% fiber reinforced composite building system. So when we talk about competitors, we talk about traditional building material. We bid against a framing company, we bid against a concrete company. So it's more bidding, and our competitors are more of a building system opposed to a company.
Absolutely, good answer. And some people came in late, so they wanted to circle back a little bit. And I think it's worthwhile. Can you talk about kind of the timeline that they've been in the market so far, and then they're asking, have you built any buildings been built to date?
So to date, over the past 16 years, as mentioned prior to the Northstar bringing the new composite system to market, we have 6 generations of this system that were done throughout the past 16 years. We've done everything from Miami-Dade College, Kendall campus in downtown Miami, U.S. Southern Command headquarters in Doral, luxury automotive condominiums. We've done a office warehouse for a France manufacturing company in South Florida. So the system, the development of the system, so what we've done is every new generation reduced how much traditional building material we had in it. We started off steel concrete, then we went to a composite blend of concrete, then we went to a ballistic plate on the metal studs, then we converted from the metal stud to the composite stud. So currently with our new generation 7, we have 3 projects that we're working on right now. One is actually in final engineering going into permit. The other ones are in final negotiations. And then the project up north that I had mentioned to you, we've been involved with that project for probably 6 months now. We're a founding team member with that project. And so every Wednesday we are on team meetings for that. So we're moving very quickly.
Thank you. And being probably a little more than halfway through this programming, I like to remind people that, as always, Northstar is actively raising capital on the Netcapital platform. You can go to netcapital.com and search for Northstar, or you can click the link that I added into chat. That is netcapital.com/companies/Northstar-TGI. So obviously want to support these up and coming innovations. With that being said, can we transition now a little bit into the market size? How large of a market are you serving?
So we have a couple different markets we work in. Global residential market is one of them. That market is about 20 billion. The non-residential global market is 73 billion. The architectural cladding market, which is what I mentioned for the high-rise cladding or curtain wall system, is $68 billion. And then exterior insulation systems, which is called EIFS, which is probably it's the biggest market at 87 billion. And that is probably one of our hottest markets for the fact that our finish looks like exactly to what's called an EIFS or a STO or a Pyrex system that they use on a lot of commercial buildings. And in some cities, that system was actually banned from being used because it's done with a metal stud, but then they have like an insulation product sheathing on it with foam insulation. And because they can't keep water out of the system, they have to have what's called a rain channel or a rain screen. Well, up north, the water gets behind that foam and behind that finish. And as it freezes, it delaminates the finish. So there's a lot of lawsuits out there with the EIFS industry. So dollar for dollar, we are competitive price-wise, and yet we can offer a 50-year structural warranty on our system.
Wow, I'm so glad. I'm glad that you went into detail on that. That's really interesting to know. And continuing along that market and into the revenue model, we talked a little bit about kind of the progress that you've made so far. Let's look to the future a little bit. Can you tell us about kind of the next part of the technology timeline and where you plan to go?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now, working with companies like Autodesk, so our base system is phenomenal. I mean, it's far advanced than anything. It's like an iPhone would have been, 10 years ago to date. It's way ahead of its time. What we're focusing on now is using additional composite materials that either are just in development, like a spider wire, to where we could actually create a truss out of material that looks like a spider web that's made of carbon fiber. So we are developing and introducing new material into our system to continually advance it. And the goal is to continually make it lighter but stronger. That's the key. And more energy efficient, and continuing to lower embodied carbon in building systems. So that's why Northstar is at core a technology company, because we not only develop the systems, but we develop the materials in which the systems are being built. And then we have manufacturers make our raw component, and then Northstar does all the manufacturing of the finished products. What we've also done is we've created, again, providing a turnkey solution. Northstar has a division that handles our construction within Northstar Building Systems. It's owned by Northstar Technologies Group, but it's our construction division. And we did that so that, one, it takes liability away from the technology side, but it also allows that division to work in the construction, and it only builds with Northstar Building Systems. And to provide turnkey solutions in residential per se, and commercial actually, we've actually incorporated our own real estate development team. It's an independent company, but we have a partnership agreement in place with them. So we have active real estate agents bringing Northstar commercial and residential projects, as well as governmental.
Yeah, and somebody's asking about an anecdote, and I really want to come to that in just a moment, but this sounds like a good place to ask this question that came in. Is standard drywall and insulation applied over your product?
Yes, so from the inside, our structures are finished the same way. The drywall, so if you looked at our system from the inside of the home, it would look like a metal or wood framed home or building. It's a composite C-channel instead of metal or wood. So the drywall is screwed directly to our C-channel. You can use traditional insulation, whether it's fiberglass bat or an icing spray foam. We prefer rock wool just because it doesn't rot. It is water resistant and it's fireproof, but inside finishes are the same. What we do offer, though, that's a little bit different. So our products, all of our products are Class A fire rated. And so we have obtained that by applying what's called an intumescent spray fire coating on the system. It's like a water-based primer, if you will. But what happens to it when heat's applied to it, it swells up and creates an air barrier between the flame and our structure. So we pass what's called Class A 30-minute extended, which means a flame can be directly applied to our wall panel for 30 minutes before we have any heat transferring to the core of the wall. As an option on a home, because commercial buildings have fire codes, homes don't, which doesn't really make sense in the industry when your families are in the home and that's where a lot of the accidents are. So Northstar offers to the homeowner for us to put our fire coating on the inside of the drywall as well, so, or onto the drywall. So that way your house on the inside is Class A fire rated as well as on the outside.
Great. And there's a couple of good questions coming in. Thanks again to all the attendees being engaged. This is how we love to have it. So can you give us an anecdotal story about a new building system, how quickly it was able to become an industry standard?
So the market approach, that's why we took the market approach we did. If we were trying to change the construction industry by relying on architects to spec the systems or engineers to spec the systems or a general contractor bringing into the project, we would have very little traction just because, and we tried that a couple of years ago through different models, and they don't want to change because their staff is used to doing it that way. They've always done it that way. So that's why Northstar developed a complete building solution. What we call end to end is that we drive the projects, we find the project pipeline, and we find the projects that are in need of this type of solution. So we're not trying to convince them to use our system. They have a problem that our system solves. And that's kind of been our market approach, and it's been very well used. So we're kind of like the drug industry, if you will, the way that they market now to the end user, and then they drive the need in the market for that consumer to say to their doctor, hey, I want this medication because I've seen what it can benefit from me. Our market approach is the same. We go to the developer and say, this is how we can reduce or increase your ROI. This is how we can reduce your construction timeline so that you can occupy your building faster to generate rents faster. Our walls are thinner, so you're gaining another foot around the perimeter of a structure. And if you look at a high rise and you can, at $350, $400 a linear foot or square foot that they're charging for sale or rent, when we can pick up 1 foot around the perimeter because our wall panels mounted to the outside of the building slab, not on top of it, for that same footprint of structure, they're gaining, you know, an exponential amount of square footage that they can charge for.
Super important. So 2 questions are tying together, and then we're going to circle back to a question that was asked a little bit earlier, but I think somebody came in and it's a really important one to answer. So let's start with, what is your strategy to service projects on a national level? And kind of piggyback into that, do you expect the market to be primarily residential or commercial? So national expansion and then residential commercial.
So a national expansion, we're going to work through what we call a builder network or a dealer network, to where we're very similar to the way that the automotive industry is set up, to where let's say Tesla, for instance, that you have a Tesla showroom. So we will have Northstar showrooms through a specific builder partner in different regions. That builder partner sells the Northstar system as if he would be selling a Tesla model. What it also does is we have service and warranties on that as well. So when you buy from your local Northstar builder, you go back to that Northstar builder for service and maintenance. And it does 2 things. To the homeowner, it makes sure that the OEM components that Northstar has put in, from the heating and air conditioning to the solar panels to the power management systems, are replaced with Northstar OEM components. It allows us to then keep track of our structures as far as how they're performing, what we need to tweak, what we need to change. So on a national level, we would be working through a dealer network, and that's actually our global model as well. We have a couple people in Europe that we've talked to that when we are ready and our European patents are in place, then we would then go through that route and set that same business model up there.
Perfect. On the national, and then for the breakdown between between residential and commercial, how much of that do you expect your business to be either?
I would say from a marketing standpoint, it would probably be 50-50, but from a revenue standpoint, our commercial projects would be exponentially larger. Again, for instance, the project we're working on up north is a $2.3 billion contract. So for us to generate revenue of $300 to $400 to $500 million in the residential market, it would take a whole lot of homes to get to that point. So homes are very personal to us, just because, again, of our experience was what ourselves and our families have gone through with these storms. It is paramount to us to put these systems in place to protect people, and we're trying to change codes. We're working with different groups that are working with local officials to change building standards, because it's kind of a misconception. You know, a homeowner puts a lot of trust into a code, thinking that that code will keep them safe, and it's proven that they have not, because these codes are antiquated. So residential side, it's a huge push for us, and we have different teams that work in residential and commercial development. So we're pushing both equally as hard. But I think from a revenue, just because of the sheer volume of commercial projects, our revenue will be higher on commercial side.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so somebody's saying there are other building systems that have been developed. Can you give us an example of a success story for Northstar Technologies?
So primarily in the past, companies have tried doing framing using composites. They've tried to hand lay up composites, and those are the products that haven't made it, because you can't take a system that is not a high-speed production component and try to put it in the market and be competitive, because the material itself is very expensive. So like I said, so Northstar went to an automated manufacturing format to be able to reduce labor. The other problem they had is that they were using composites with traditional building materials, which that doesn't work either. That's, you know, like putting bad fuel in a high performance car. It doesn't perform like it does. So right now, that's why globally Northstar is the only company with 100% fiber reinforced polymer building structure. And it's exterior walls, interior, if we want to, on the partition walls, floor and roof system. So it's a complete package. And that also leads to going back to market as well. Military and defense contracts are a huge market for us as well. Again, our wall panels, whether it's a conics unit for ammunition holding area for the military or a barracks, our base system, even used on our homes, is UL listed ballistic level 1. Again, that 1/4 inch material can take a direct hit with a 9mm bullet at 5 yards. We also go all the way up to UL level 8. And these are UL certifications that the product has obtained. A UL level 8, the outside skin of our wall is 1.5 inches thick and would take a direct hit with a 308 full metal jacket. So our expanse from government to military to IT to residential to commercial, these markets are huge, and we're setting up separate teams to work in each of those market segments.
Yeah, that's great. I imagine your team members from Northrop can help with those defense contracting conversations, hopefully. Absolutely. Maybe. Right. And this is a really good one. And certainly, I know we did address this earlier, but I think it's such an important detail. And I think it's being asked again. How does the cost, labor, and materials of your system compare to current materials and labor used for construction?
So again, the materials are more expensive, but we reduce the overall cost, and we are competitive to conventional construction because we've automated the system and reduced the labor. So the labor in the field is probably one of the highest impacts of that because you have workman's comp. And especially in areas, let's say a high union area on a commercial project, we're able to make those components off-site in our manufacturing plant at non-union labor rates as a panelized knockdown construction, shipped to the job site and then erected by union crews. So trying to do all that work in the field would be 4 to 5 times higher than it would be as if we make it. So we are competitive with traditional building materials because we're able to reduce both time and with the investment in equipment.
And I think earlier you discussed concrete and steel, and then you talked about wood. Can you talk about the pricing, the competitive pricing in those spaces as well?
Sure. Wood's a moving target right now. We were told by a couple partners of ours that we bid a house in Montana, a pretty big home. It was almost I think 7,000 square feet gross, and it was designed with wood originally. And I mean, plywood sheathing in that area has gone up almost 3 times in a matter of a couple months. So between what's happening with the wood because of COVID, because a lot of the wood comes from Canada, those mills have been shut down. So the supply, right down to even wood trim. We've had some local builders that had to go to 3 to 4 supply houses just to get enough trim carpentry wood to be able to finish out a couple residential projects. So wood is a really moving target. I think with all the new sustainability restrictions going to be in place, I think that's going to just continue to increase the cost of lumber. What happened up in California, up in Paradise, I mean, they lost what, 23 to 28 thousand structures up there, and they started building with wood again after all those burned, and they couldn't get enough wood. They were bringing it in from Oregon. The wood was wet, and to try to build with wet lumber, it doesn't go well. I mean, so I think wood's going to continually to increase in price. Steel was increasing 15% per month, even when we were making with wood through generation 1 through 6. Concrete, it's the manufacturing of it is pretty stable, but the transportation cost of it, the fuel cost of it, the cranes that are required to erect it like a tilt wall, make those go up. And to give you a quick example with tilt wall, let's say, tilt wall and block walls weigh about 75 pounds per square foot of wall panel. We weigh 5, and we have a 250 mile an hour impact rating. The difference at the job site for that, when you talk about cost, for tilt wall, you need about a 250 to 300 ton crane. You can be looking at $18,000 to $20,000 mobile and demobilization fees just to build that crane to erect it. And then $3,000 to $5,000 a day, whether that crane's working or not. With our product, we use a truck crane, $160 to $200 an hour, 4-hour minimum. If it's raining, the unit doesn't go to the job. So again, when you can reduce job site costs that much, reduce labor costs, we are very competitive with traditional building material.
Thanks for that, Paul. And then I think you mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure that we explicitly address this. Does Northstar also do rafters and roofing then as well?
Yes, we do rafters, we do joists, we do open web trusses. So pretty much we can match any truss configuration for flat, hip, or gable roof. And same thing with our floor joists. We do floor joists, floor trusses, I-beams, wide flange beams, all made out of composite. So pretty much every profile in structural steel we have in our FRP composites.
Very cool. Very cool. And again, we're coming around to close to the end here, so I'm going to keep getting to as many of these questions as possible. There's more information on the Netcapital offering page. You can go to netcapital.com, learn more. There's a Q&A discussion panel there as well if we don't get to all of your questions. I want to make sure that everybody knows that we can continue the conversation. So continuing along here, how did you come to the current market value? And I want to be really thoughtful about the regulations here, address exactly what that is. Anybody can go to Netcapital and see the price per share and valuation, but how did you determine the valuation? And can you talk a little bit about some of the money that was already invested into the company.
Right. So over the past 16 years, we have about a cumulative of $11 million that was actually to develop different generations of the system. So the combination of energy, engineering resources, prototyping, project prototyping, that led to what are some of our hard cost of what it actually, the pain and suffering to get to where we're at today. We were actually evaluated higher than the $30 million evaluation. We felt coming in at a lower valuation would be better, and that's why we chose the $30 million valuation. It went through our CPA firm. He reviewed, as per the requirements of, the SEC. And so basically it was what it took to develop the system to date. It was not revenue based. So for an investor coming in now, at that lower evaluation, as revenue is coming in, that evaluation is going to go up exponentially.
Great. And as we start to conclude here, can you talk a little bit about your defensibility? I know that you have intellectual property counsel, and you've already started filing with the USPTO. Can you talk a little bit about your IP strategy and the defensibility of Northstar Technologies?
Yep, we have Dwayne P. Parker. He's our president and CEO. He's developed our president, I'm sorry. He's put together the patent portfolio very tightly. We had more claims than we could actually file with, just to give you an idea. So what that allows us to do is as that patent comes out, we already have roughly 35 additional claims that would immediately go in off of that base seminal patent. And through the research that we've done, and again, just knowing that these systems have not been developed to this point, the patents were developed around that. And not only were they developed just for the product, but they were developed to be able to be used in different applications. So our patents cover permanent applications, mobile applications, floating applications, modular applications. So we have a lot of surprising products that are coming out that are all pinned off of that. I mean, we could actually create a floating city, if you will, or if like in Europe, they have cities that are right on the water, that the buildings actually go up and down almost like a sea dock so that they can raise with the water level. We have applications built into our patents for those applications as well. So it's a very, very strong, well thought out patent. And Dwayne's got over 10 new patents, including European patents that he's developed in counter drone technology. So he's been, a huge asset to the company.
Absolutely. And I know we touched on this, so this will be the last one, but I wanted to make sure that all the potential investors and attendees get as much information as they can. Would your material work in space, and could it be used for construction on Mars or other future explorations? Very interesting.
Funny to ask that, because it actually is used in space already, not through Northstar, but one of our partner companies. So we actually have I mentioned it before regarding outgassing. So we have an outgassing report through NASA that is being used in space vehicle construction currently. So absolutely, there's companies that we've been tracking that are actually making housing units for Mars and other applications like that. And the benefit of the system is, real quick, because I know we're running quick with time. When we did our Florida product approval, part of that was air tightness and water tightness. And we had shipped our test specimens, and these are huge walls. They were 12 foot by 14 foot walls that we had to ship over to West Palm Beach. We used Intertech over there. And we shipped the panels with no finish coat on them. It was just the ballistic panel epoxy bonded to our studs. And they called us up and they said, "Hey, you forgot your finishing panel." And I go, "We want it tested without it." And they said, "It can't be done." And I said, "Test it without it." And we're talking $100,000 worth of testing here. So they tested it. And first try, we passed with 0 air and 0 water permeability. So what that does to a structure is, when you can make a structure, and even our homes are designed like this, they're basically sealed. We bring air in and we bring air out so that we can control the environment. And that's the only way you can really do a sustainable structure, whether here or in Mars or wherever else it would be, is if you can control the environment within the structure, and we've attained that.
Very cool. I think that's a great opportunity to transition to our final, and I like to just have closing remarks. So, Paul, if you could share with the attendees, thank you all for coming in, and thank you for all for your questions. Remember, all the more information is on the Netcapital offering page. You can go to netcapital.com and search Northstar. You can invest. You can learn more and invest there. But with regards to closing remarks, I always like to have the team just answer. So, why should these attendees, potential investors, go directly to Netcapital right now and invest?
Well, that's because, again, we valued our company at a very modest right now pre-revenue. With the projects that we have in the pipeline, that we have under letter of intent, that stock's going to go up exponentially. We are fast tracked right now. All of our product approvals are done in place. Our patents are filed, and we're 100% focused on business development and on our products. So I would say get in now while the stock is obtainable.
That's perfect, Paul. Well, thank you again, Paul. And I'm sure there's tons of team members behind you at Northstar Technologies. I'd like to thank them as well for all the work that they've done. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Netcapital platform. Thank you to the attendees for joining and asking your very thoughtful questions. It was very interactive. That's how we love to have it. So thanks so much for that. As always, this has been recorded and will be uploaded to the Netcapital YouTube account. And I actually am just adding that into the chat right now. So feel free to go. If you missed any of this conversation and you want to go back and hear some of that, you can do that there. There's also other presentations that you can check out as well. But as always, thank you so much for attending us. You can go directly to Netcapital and invest right now. And Paul, it was a pleasure learning more about Northstar Technologies.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Enjoy.
Bye now. Thank you.